Good evening, everyone. Late Night Mega here, and tonight we are playing Duel Masters Shadow of the Code. This is a game that came out on Game Boy Advance, and this is a card battle game. This is Game Boy Advance. Even for Game Boy Advance standards, I'll just warn you, heads up, the graphics are not good and sometimes quite laughable. This game was a card game, and it was basically designed to be Magic the Gathering light. A very basic version of Magic the Gathering, also made by Wizards of the Coast, so the same people who made Magic. There was an anime that went along with this, and, well, the game did not do very well. But, in some ways I think it's a little too basic, but I do still enjoy playing this game somewhat for the gameplay. I'm going to go over the tutorial in this video, so if you don't know how to play, or maybe even if you do know how to play this game, the interface is kind of wonky a bit. It takes some getting used to. If not, you can probably just skip this episode, because I'm just going to do the tutorial here. So, for those who don't know how to play, we can skip the tutorial. Okay, wonderful. Yes, it's your deck management. This is not my deck management screen. This is my opening hand. Alright, so you do have mana in this game. And the first screen... Yeah, all the cards down here... I told you guys, the interface is very weird. So that's how much mana that we currently have. You untap your mana just like you do in Magic the Gathering. You tap things to use it, or to attack with your creatures. You press L to view the current game info and look at the... Okay. This icon shows you how many cards you have in your deck. Yeah, if you run out of cards in your deck, you do lose the game. The shields are, well, they're very important. So the way you win this game is you attack with your creatures, and every time you attack your opponent, you break one of their shields. A shield is one of your cards from your deck. At the start of the game, you draw 5 cards, and you put the top 5 cards of your deck face down as your shields. Once you destroy all of your opponent's shields, then you have to deliver one final attack to them directly, and then you win. Sounds simple, right? Attack power of monsters do not matter when you're breaking shields. You can have a 1,000 attack monster or an 8,000 attack monster. It does not matter. Each one will break a shield the same way. Now, the biggest difference between this game and Magic the Gathering, what I like about the Duel Masters over Magic the Gathering is that if you've ever played Magic the Gathering, you have lands that you use, and the lands will generate the mana. And one of the biggest ways that you win or lose games in Magic a lot of the times what happens is you either draw too many lands or not enough lands and not enough action cards to interact with your opponent. Well, this game fixes that, because any card in your hand can be put down as mana. So there's no lands. Any card is just one mana of that type. So pretty simple. And I do like that system. Okay, you're putting a card in your mana zone. Yep. Cards can generate mana once per turn. Yep, you can only add one card to your mana zone per turn. Each card also only generates 1 mana. You're not going to see it in this game because you never get to see a full card the way it is in the real card game. You can see, like, the picture, it'll show you, like, the text in that, but it won't ever be presented the way that you see a card. Like, if you go and look up a Duel Masters card, like, if you look up this King Neptus card, you see the name of it is at the bottom. The 6 is how much mana it takes. 5,000 is its attack points, and then there's different symbols. I believe that symbol means it has an effect when it attacks. And then you also have spells. Another thing about this game, you can't actually interact during your opponent's turns. You cannot play cards during your opponent's turns. So it's a lot more basic than Magic the Gathering. Wizards designed this game to kind of be like an on-ramp for younger kids to put them on a path to play Magic the Gathering. So the game was kind of almost destined to fail. In some ways, like I mentioned, I think it's a little too basic. But I'm going to apply some of my more recent knowledge and experience from Magic the Gathering Arena and Shadowverse and things like that to this game. I mean, I already have some ideas in memory on, you know, what cards to play and some of the stuff to avoid and how to build a deck in that. Decks have 40 cards, just like a limited deck in Magic the Gathering. One other thing I wanted to say... Oh, now I forgot. Now I've lost my train of thought. That's okay. We'll just pay attention to the tutorial. Yeah, he can't cast anything because it's all very expensive. We're going to want to put some early plays in our deck. It's our turn. We're going second this game, so whoever goes second gets to draw first. Yep. Yeah, you generally want to put high mana value cards in your mana zone early on, because we'd be 7 turns away from casting that Gatling Skyterror. Though Gatling Skyterror is one of my favorite cards. We have a Deadly Fighter Braidclaw, and this... we can press the select button, you can see... So here's the card. This is not how the card is laid out on the actual cards, but I've mentioned that. So it has an ability, this creature attacks each turn if able. It can't attack the turn it comes into play due to summoning sickness. But this is one of the most aggressive creatures in the game. Actually, you can't get more aggressive than this. So, yeah, we were on the mana screen, and then you're on the summon cast screen. If he ever gets his face out of there... Okay, yeah, see how it says summon cast? Make sure you're on that, but if you accidentally put a card into your mana and you don't mean to, you can press B and you'll get to undo that for the moment. Though if you cast a card and then try to undo the mana, you can't do that. Then we press R to summon, and then there's our field. Yeah, you see we got our 5 shields on the left, opponent has 5 shields on the right. Oh, the other thing about this game, which is interesting, is when you break one of your opponent's shields, that card gets to go to their hand. So you essentially can't win the game without giving your opponent extra cards in order to try and make a comeback and stop you. I find that kind of interesting. This game does have some shortcomings, which we'll get into when we get to the actual main game. A light blocker with power 2000. Yeah. So, not every creature can block. I believe that the blue symbol means they can block. But most blockers have restrictions on their attack, which is what the R stands for. It means their attack is being hindered. In the case of the card he's about to play... Okay, yep. 1 water, 1 light. Yeah. So, you do need 1 light mana in order to play a light card, but you only need 1 of that type. So it's a little bit easier to manage colors as well. There's no cards in the game that are going to require, say, 3 water mana specifically to cast. I think if it did, it would add a bit more depth to the game. But, okay. Waiting to protect me. Okay, that ends his turn. Now I'm forced to attack, which means my opponent can just block and kill my thing. So, and we drew a perfect card because, of course, it's the tutorial. Okay, so he wants us to put Tornado Flame into the thing. Now, Tornado Flame, they're probably going to go over this, I'm sure. Shield Trigger, this is another one of the major pillars of Duel Masters, is these cards with Shield Trigger. So like it says, when this spell is put into our hand from our shield being destroyed, so basically our opponent attacks and hits this card, I can cast that card immediately without paying its mana cost. So shield triggers are a great way to make a comeback into the game. The only way to really interact with your opponent. Of course, it's kind of random because you don't know what your shields are going to be in most cases. I mean, there's cards that'll let you look at shields and in that. Most of them aren't really worth the time and aren't really efficient. Crimson Hammer, it'd be great if we knew what this card did before we cast it. So it's a spell card, so you cast the spell the same way you would play a creature. The spell takes its effect, then it goes to your graveyard. Destroy one of your opponent's creatures that has 2,000 power or less. That's awesome. So we're going to go ahead and cast that. We tap both. It doesn't matter what order you tap your mana in. And then you have to select the creature you want to kill. We're going to kill that. You get a little animation. Graveyard is... I just explained all of this. You've used all of your mana. Okay, so then we go to the battle phase. We have one attacker and we have to attack, so we attack. Oh, the thing about the blocker our opponent had, the restricted attack, a lot of blockers in this game just can't attack players. Some of them can attack other creatures, so if they're tapped creatures, you can attack tapped creatures. But you can't attack untapped creatures with the exception of a very limited amount of cards that give you the ability to do that. And once you attack, you can break one of the shields. It doesn't matter what you pick. And so the card now goes to our opponent's hand. So he has an extra card to work with. And if we had broken his shield and it was a shield trigger, he could play that card right away. So he's going to summon the Vizier of Bullets. So yeah, and then he gets the... So you select a card to play or cast, and then it brings you to the cards that you have in your mana zone. So the interface kind of flips around a lot. You just really have to pay attention to what spot on the interface you're at. And summon two more creatures, Brawler Xyler and another Deadly Fighter Braidclaw. I might be in trouble. You want the Stonosaur? Oh, not Rothus the Traveler. Oh, I remember what Rothus did. This was a starter deck rare. So you can see we have a very aggressive start here. But our opponent, yeah, we're on Summon Cast. And then you flip to your mana. So yeah, it takes a little bit of getting used to. You don't want to try and autopilot this game, like if you're grinding for cards or packs or something. I recommend not just trying to autopilot when you're still getting used to the game. You really got to focus on what we're doing here. Now, you can't attack untapped creatures. You also wouldn't want to because this has 3,000 power, whereas our Braidclaw has 1,000 power, so you just straight up lose that fight. When creatures battle each other, it's just whoever has more power wins. Okay, so yeah, he's got more mana. Yeah, you can see 8 mana for 11,500 power. The 2, I believe that's Double Breaker, which means that creature will break 2 shields when he hits a player. So that can be a way to really eliminate your opponent's shields quickly. I believe there are a few cards that have Triple Breaker in this game, but they're very, very few. I'm better off destroying one of my creatures and breaking a shield? Yeah. Otherwise I have 3 attackers next turn. So he's going to attack there. Yeah, if one creature's power is higher... Oh, if the creatures are tied with their power, they both go to the graveyard, so it would be a trade. Another thing that made this kind of a sort of kiddie thing is using thousands of power. Like, everything has 1,000 power, or increments of 1,000. Some of them will have an increment of 500, like 2,550. We saw the 11,500. And I think it's just another way that they marketed this game towards a younger audience. Because kids like seeing big numbers. I know when I was playing the Final Fantasy games for the first time, especially Final Fantasy IV, I got really excited when I did an attack or cast a spell that did 4 digits of attack, and you see, like, 3,000 damage, or the famous 9999 damage. So you can also choose not to play a card into mana. That is an option. Now we're going to have to put this into mana because we can't cast it. Rothus the Traveler. Yeah, you have to summon and play your cards. There's no main phase 2 like there is in Magic. So you have to play your cards before you attack. I'm going to play Rothus. We each destroy... We're going to destroy, our Deadly Fighter Braidclaw, because if we don't, he's required to attack. We could also kill our own Rothus, but that's a little bit silly. So he's going to keep the blocker. And Brawler Xyler here, this has... How much does it get? Plus 2,000? Yeah. So it has an ability called Power Attacker, so he gets plus 2,000 power while attacking. Some of them are plus 3,000, plus 4,000. Depends on the creature, but that's what the plus symbol means. It's probably going to block. Yep, because they'll both have 3,000 power. So they're equal. Yeah, okay. Let's move things along here. Fairy Child. Well, if the blue orb symbol stands for blocker, I think that means we can't block it, but we're playing fire. Okay, so here we go. This is an instance where you don't want to play as mana. If you do play it as mana, you can press B and then undo it when you get to the next screen, but we're going to press R to skip, and now just pay attention to where it says Summon Cast, and then we can cast this thing. Oh. Plus 2,000 power if we have a human. Well, Rothus is very much not a human. I think Brawler Xyler is a human. Anyways, it doesn't matter, we're playing this. And we attack with Rothus. We're going to attack him. So it gives him another card in hand. So he's got more cards. Oh, there's this... I always thought that card was named Sentinel Jade Tree. Senatine Jade Tree. I like that card. If you notice, a lot of these blockers that have been getting played are kind of above rate. What I mean by that is, generally, in Magic the Gathering, and it's true for here as well, since this is Magic the Gathering Light, 1 point of 1 mana that you spend, you should expect 1,000 attack power from your creature. Oh. Here's our shield trigger. So I get to cast this right away. Tornado Flame. This is one of the cards the main character in the anime used, too. He had a fire deck. And, so we get to cast this. Destroys a creature with power 4,000 or less. And so we're going to want to get rid of the blocker. If creatures don't have the blocker ability, they can't block. So that's why that Fairy Child attacked. Magma Gazer. Well, it's all I need to win. Can we figure out what it does first? One of your creatures gets Power Attacker plus 4,000. Oh, and Double Breaker. Awesome. Well, that works. And I can select either creature, Rothus. So, yeah, attack with the Double Breaker first. and you get to break 2 shields. Now, even if the first one is a shield trigger, you do get both shields broken first. If both are shield triggers, our opponent can cast both of them. And as you see, when the music gets more intense and more hyper, when when someone loses all their shields. And then you do the final attack. Depends what... There's 5 different civilizations. You kind of noticed from the mana screen. Evolution creatures. This should be a fairly quick one. Provide a nice surprise attack. They usually have great abilities, and they're cheaper to summon than normal creatures. The downside to evolution is you have to have a creature on the field the same race as in the battle zone. Okay. Bark Whip the Smasher, a Beast Folk evolution. And we have a Fear Fang. Okay. I'm going to show you what this does. So it'll say it's an evolution, and the type up there, the Beast Folk. So you need to evolve only a Beast Folk type. Then it has another effect. Evolutions can also attack the turn they come into play. They are not affected by Summoning Sickness. So that is cool. And this particular one from the Nature Civilization... Yeah, they don't get Summoning Sickness. Yeah, I explained all that. Survivor creatures. Yeah, that one we saw at the Nature Civilization, that one has given me problems sometimes, because it's only 2 mana to play. I don't think there's any 1 mana Beast Folk that you can have, but it can still come out very early in the game, and there's not a lot of ways to deal with it right away, even the blockers. Oh, as I was talking about, the blockers. 1 point of mana. Why is Survivor creatures? Why is this a tutorial? Aren't they just creatures with the Survivor race? May not look like much at first glance, but watch out. These amazing creatures share their abilities with all other survivors. Ah, yes. So the survivors tend to be weaker on their own for the mana rate, but they'll all share abilities. That's what it is. I guess that's the survivor symbol, the little upside down heart that's cut into 3 yellow thing. I don't know what that is. Summoning Balzaurus Q. Well, let's see what it does first, can we? Oh, it's just power attacker plus 1000. So yeah, even though this is only 1000 power, even on its own, it'll attack as a 2000 power. So that's still decent. They're just gonna have us summon Horn Q and see what happens. This creature gets plus 1000 power. Oh, so this isn't even really under rate. Because it's gonna have... Why do I have 9 darkness? I guess so, however you tap the mana here, it's just not gonna screw up. Huh, 3 mana, 3000 power, that's still on rate. But notice the blockers that he was playing, those light blockers, it was like a 2 mana 3000 power blocker, a 3 mana 4000 power blocker. So the blockers can kind of outpace the attackers in this game a bit longer. And that's why I like blockers in this game. I usually play a deck with blockers. We'll go over that more once we get into the actual game. What does this thing do? Slayer. This creature loses a battle, destroy the other creature. Okay, so Slayer is basically Death Touch. There's probably a cheaper Death Touch. I'm going to use Magic the Gathering terms sometimes. Yeah, now that we have all 3 of them out, they all have Slayer. That's kind of nice. Alright, so that was the tutorial. Next time we'll get into the actual game, we'll start a new game. But for now, I'll take my leave.